one and all, and welcome to another episode of Between Sisters. I am Kaya, your host, and I'm here with my road dogs, my chicks, my sisters, and my Sancho Pay, now Monte Carlo, homies. First in tonight, we have Cho Lovey. Okay, next in, we have Keisha Keish. Next in, we have Shauna Dawn. And last but certainly not least, the youngest of the crew, that would be Evie. The topic for today's video is daddy issues. Now, just a little backstory. We're all sisters. 3 of us by blood and 2 of us by love. Now, Shauna and Eve are my blood sisters. Eve has a different mom, but we have the same dad. Now, from that same dad, we have 2 brothers, 2 older brothers, and their wives are Chola and Keisha. So that's the connection. Now, even though they are sisters in love, we couldn't get any closer if we had the same blood running through our veins. Okay?
Right.
So that makes us all sisters. Now, the fact that we have the one shared denominator, which is our father, he was not the most present in our lives. But from him, we got such a great circle and unit. Now, it may not always be, as far as, certain, attitudes and personalities.
It's like any other family.
Just like any other family.
Yep. Yes. But our crew can't get no better. I don't think there's any other crew better than our crew. We can stand toe to toe with anybody.
Fact.
And we have stood toe to toe with everybody.
True.
So, I think out of the 5 of us, Chola is the only one that grew up with her father in the house for her entire childhood.
True.
The rest of us, scrapping and survive.
So right now it's actually 1 out of 5 women have their father.
Yes.
In the household.
1 out of 5 women have their father in the house. So obviously we're going to break it down a little more and just discuss how the dynamics affected us from childhood and as grown women. But because of the fact that she is the unicorn of the group, I wanted you to go first, Cho, and just speak your truth.
As far as growing up with your dad in the home, see, I don't know because that's all I know. So for some people, they'll say, oh, you were lucky. But, kids, sometimes when you do have both of your parents in the house, you don't feel like you're lucky.
Right.
Especially when when the kids do things and you have a mother that's like, oh, I'm going to tell your father when he gets home. And then your father gets home, he's a disciplinarian. So that it's because he becomes the villain in the household. Because, he's the one who, once your mother gets upset with you because you did something wrong, she goes to him. And then he's the one who disciplines everyone. So, for years, I used to think that my father was like this horrible person. Like,
because he was a disciplinarian?
I hate him. But it's because he was, but it really is because he was a disciplinarian. He had 4 daughters, but sometimes I don't think he understood that he had 4 daughters. I think sometimes he just thought that girls and boys were like synonymous because when it snowed outside, we had to shovel snow,
Right.
trash out. So it's like,
I'm gonna get out our beds.
yeah. So yeah, but I don't want to make it a bad thing also because there are a lot of women I know that have great relationships with their fathers.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't say that my relationship is great with my dad, but I mean, because there's always going to be issues no matter what.
Right. True.
I can say one thing. My father was and is still a provider. He's always been a provider. We've never needed for nothing. We've never gone hungry. We've never gone homeless. We've never gone without, clothes on our backs. There's a lot of things I can actually say that my father, I respect him for a lot of things. He exposed me to culture. He exposed me to music.
Mm-hmm.
He used to, when they say that your parents are your first teachers, he actually was my first teacher. He made sure that I read the damn New York Times.
Mm-hmm.
The Sunday Times was like a must in our home. So there's a lot of gems that I can actually say that I have learned from my father that I still carry on through this day.
Mm-hmm.
But I can still say that I have daddy issues because no one is perfect.
Right.
So how do you feel that your relationship with him affected how, if it did, affected how you interact with men?
Well, I can honestly say I married my father.
They say that about girls.
Yeah, I did marry my
They
father.
say that about girls.
And this is true. I married a man with multiple siblings. I married a man who's into his family.
Who's a provider? Who's a provider?
Who's a provider.
Mm-hmm.
And he also has a lot of the flaws that my father has. He has a lot of those flaws as well. The crazy thing is we both share the same love of music because we've actually got that love of music from our fathers,
right.
which is so crazy because your dad is a musician. My dad isn't a musician. However, my dad is a music lover. You guys know.
Mm-hmm.
Y'all know my father's album collection was like
insane.
It was crazy. My dad had jazz albums that are worth $1 gazillion today. So I guess it is true when they say that girls do marry their dads because I married a man that has a lot of traits of my dad, but he also has a lot of traits of his dad.
So
and that's a double whammy.
That's a double whammy. I'm trying to hide the gray hairs right now, is all I can say. I know only from my relationship with you all and my relationship with some other females who didn't have their dad present in the home. But I also know from my girlfriends that did have their dads in the home that sometimes people think that because your dad was in the home, it was so much greater and better than
that's not true.
Your dad not being in the home.
Right.
Yeah, and it's so crazy. It's like the same thing with the married thing. Like, oh, you got a husband, your life is great, and it's like I don't have a husband. I'm like, girl, no. Girl, no. Husband don't equal great.
Yeah. I get it. So, Keish, I know that you had obviously your father. Actually, ironically, we spoke about him, in length the other day, and then you also had your stepfather.
Well, for me, I never witnessed my mom and dad together because when they broke up, well, first of all, my parents were married, and when they broke up, I was still a baby. So I experienced my mother, being a single parent for a while, and then I can honestly say that I might have seen like maybe 2 guys or 3 guys that my mom dated, and she told me years later that you know, she dated a lot of guys, but she made sure I didn't see that in the home. You know, my mom dated, her goal for me was to have a sibling and to have a father. So with that being said, you know, I remember her being a single parent for years. She dated a couple guys that I've seen, but then she settled for my stepfather, who her mother was married twice. So the second guy she married, I'm not going to say his name. Even if I was allowed to say his name, he doesn't deserve to have his name said.
Gusto.
So having a stepfather in the house was very interesting. Initially, I liked him, but when he started putting his hands on my mother, that's when my vision of him changed. And I hated his guts because it was not, you know, the first time he did it, he took me for a walk and asked for my forgiveness, and I forgave him. But then he did it like 2-3 more times. And there were times where like I would see bruises, and I'm like, Mom, where you get that from? And she make a lie, oh, I fell off my bike. Dumb shit like that. So with that being said, they were together for a long time. And, you know, for me, he was not a father figure. But rewinding it to my dad, and I love my dad to death, but I did get to see my dad like once a month. And rumor had it, I never got to confirm with him, but rumor had it that he quit his job so he wouldn't have to pay child support. So I barely knew my father working for years, and I never could figure out why he wasn't working.
Right.
And he became a severe alcoholic. So I remember being, you know, going to liquor stores with him, and he would come out and drink a pint in like 30 seconds. And, you know, while I stood there and ate my cheese doodles. So, you know, so I had experienced alcoholism with my dad. But overall, when in between my mother being single and her getting married, when I was in a situation with my stepfather, I missed being in a single parent home, which is weird. You know, like the average kid would want.
Like, I need us to go back to just the two of us.
Yeah. I'm like, we were fine without him. And then they were trying to have a kid for years. He kept blaming my mother, saying something was wrong with her. Finally, they went and got checked. It was something wrong with him. So then it was like, then you just this useless bastard in our house because you can't produce kids. Sorry for anyone who's trying
literally.
You gotta keep in mind, this is the man that was putting his hands on my mother.
Right.
So then I'm like, so if they have a kid with this dude, why is he here?
Right.
Yeah.
And then, you know, but for me, having him in the home and witnessing my mother be a wife to him, I actually learned how to be a wife indirectly. I learned how to be a wife when you don't want to be a wife. I learned that, you know, I learned that, you know, not to say I have to be a servant, because, you know, making someone a plate is not being a servant. But for me, when I was going through the motions with her, I couldn't understand how you can make someone a plate when y'all just had an argument. You know, but I learned how to be a wife because of my mother. I learned what not to do with my kids by seeing my stepfather in the home. And then on top of that, I was a single child. So, I mean, not a single child, I was the only child, sorry. I was the only child, so that made it worse. So I didn't have a sibling to even bounce off of, and we could be in the corner at night talking about his behind while he's in the other. Like, you know, our kids be like, I eat his ass. I couldn't nobody.
It's right. It's so funny that you said it, because we're having siblings, we can complain about my father.
Right.
And it's actually therapy.
Right.
So I didn't have that. I had all that bottle up inside, like Jesus.
Yeah.
And then I was telling Kaya that the way my mom left him was so dope, because they always was arguing. And the day she decided to leave him, they had like one of the smallest arguments ever. And she waited till he went to work, and then she called my uncle, and she called my cousin, who I look at as my aunt, and she was like, I need y'all to take off from work today. And when I tell you, they moved everything out of that apartment in like 3-4 hours.
Wow.
They put other people to shame.
So they was able to move.
We needed.
Y'all needed that. It was a 3-man crew. And
They got it all out.
By the time he got home from work, empty. She did leave him some stuff though. She did. Like a baby.
It was the time when he least expected it to happen when it happened.
Yes. It was like the cherry on top of the whole Sunday, and it just made everything crumble. And he couldn't understand. He was reviewing the argument, but he wasn't reviewing their history.
The history, yeah. Like, remember all them years of dealing with all, like when Tina, after they had to fight in the limo, and she was like, anything else I could do for you, baby? Go in there and get yourself cleaned up.
Yep.
He ran across the street, like
across the highway,
the Underground Railroad.
Yes.
You know, he ran across that 6-lane highway for however many lanes it was. But you would have thought it was miles.
Yeah. Every time I see that scene in a movie, though, I always like, don't get hit. Like, no, I'm not.
Every time I see it, I'm just like, y'all could have shown that she had on flats. Y'all could have not shown us that she had on flats.
Yeah.
You know. But
she was running.
And I'm at this point, I'm so happy for my daughters that they have their dad in their house. And I don't even think they understand the magnitude of having your biological father in the house with you. Like, that's a blessing.
And he is a girl dad.
Right.
Such a girl dad.
See,
girl
but
dad.
You know what, Keisha? And that's just it, what you just said. Because for them, it really isn't a big deal.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like, it's another Tuesday.
It's their norm, so they don't see it as anything but it's supposed to be that way.
Yeah.
So
one thing my mother said to me one day years ago, she said one of the things that she regretted not having my father in the house was that she hated being the villain. Like how you said your dad was the villain. She was the villain, and she always wanted to say, when your father get home, I'm gonna tell him you did X, Y, and Z. She couldn't do that. So and then sidebar, I never called only for a split second I called my stepfather dad. That was another thing too. I didn't call him dad. And then he started complaining, she doesn't call me dad, blah, blah, blah. And then I started calling him dad for like a couple months, and then he put his hands on her again. I was like, I'm not calling him dad. So after that, I ceased calling him dad, and he would complain about it, but I didn't care. And I told my mother, And another sidebar. So years later, I was one of those kids that, because we grew up in the era, you had to respect your elders. And I really respected that man as best as I could. I was not a rude kid. Years later, I had the chance to curse him the F out. Like, I cursed him out. Because what my mother did for him was, they had separated by this point. They had been separated for like maybe 2 years. He lost his apartment, and she allowed him to move in, and she allowed him to actually no, I'm sorry, I'm getting my timeline wrong. She allowed him to come over at times. And so he had gotten wind that she was dating somebody, and he got pissed. So he had a key to the apartment. She's taking a shower, and as she's taking a shower, all the lights go out. So she's in darkness in the shower, and she hears someone in her apartment. And he wanted her to hear someone in the apartment. And he scared the crap. Like, he wanted her to think there was a burglar in the house. Like, this man was crazy. So when I came home from work that day, I must have been like 17, 18 years old. And when she told me, and he was sitting on the couch, like, I don't even know why he was allowed to sit on the couch. I would have told him to get out. And when I came home and she told me, I cursed him out. I gave him all kind of gutter words.
And we know when you get ready. We know. When you get ready,
flame goes on.
Girl.
And he was like, who are you talking to? I'm talking to you, motherfucker. So, and then when they had the chance to tell her, I told my mother straight up, I said, I didn't like that dude since I was 9 years old. She was like, Dad, you know what? I don't like him. I tolerated him for you.
For you, right.
So, yeah. I might need a little therapy after this. I brought up so much stuff. I was fine until this session right here.
But you see, Yvette, that goes back to what I was talking about today.
Yeah.
If she should have been able to be honest with her mother,
right,
as a kid, to let her know that I don't like him.
Mhm.
I understand that, but my thing
Because
was
you know,
earlier
some parents take cues from their kids.
True.
Yeah.
Kids are the biggest discerners on the planet.
facts.
Yeah.
Facts. Yeah, I agreed with you. Okay. It's a lot. Like, it's a lot.
Just go ahead.
Okay, so I didn't have our father, or
Cleophas.
in the household.
Cleo.
Huh?
Your case is kind of interesting.
Yeah, because you had him a little bit.
Exactly.
Yeah, because you had him, you didn't have him. You had him, you
Had
didn't
him,
have
you
him.
didn't
I
have
You
thought
had
I
him.
was telling the story.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead, boo.
But you the baby. You the baby. I remember.
So
Okay.
I am the youngest. I'm the baby out of all of our siblings. Well, from Cleophas, it's 12 of us. I'm the 12th.
Like
Yeah.
100.
12,
It's like
yes.
100.
12, yeah.
Yeah, so
I'm
I'm
the
the 12th.
Are we allowed to tell the age range? Are we allowed to tell the age range on here? Like from
Yeah.
the oldest, just
So-
the oldest to her.
The oldest,
The oldest is
There is a 28-year difference.
He's
between the
50, he's
oldest
56.
and
let her tell her story. Go
Sorry.
ahead, let her tell her story. Sorry, Eve. Go
Sorry.
ahead.
Oh, I was telling. Anyway, so my oldest brother is 56 and I am 28. So, and there's others in between, of course. I had Cleophas in the household until I was about 4 or so. When we moved up here we lived in North Carolina. I had my mom, I had my other siblings, not from this group, my mom's
Your mom
kids.
had children.
Yeah, my mom had children. So I had Cleophas probably till 4 when we moved up here when she got sick. Unfortunately, she passed when I was 4 years old, 2 days after Christmas. And a couple of days from my brother's birthday. His birthday is on January 1st. And it was between Christmas and his birthday that we lost my mom. She passed away right in front of me, which I still have flashbacks from.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I was raised by my aunt and uncle. Cleophas left. And I was raised by my aunt and uncle with my siblings on that side and their children. Church, Christian household. My uncle who raised me was a bishop in the church and everything, so we had that. But Cleophas was in and out of my life. Like I had him a little more than my siblings, but he was still absent. Like I still to this day have flashbacks of him saying, "Oh, he's gonna come pick me up. I'm waiting at the door with my book bag and everything. Like, no, my daddy's gonna come and get me. My daddy's gonna come get me," and he never showed up. Or I have a flashback of when he was belligerently drunk, and I was complaining one day. I would remember one story. I was so bored. I was like, oh my God, because I went to go visit. Like he had visitation. So I went to go visit him, and I'm sitting here, oh my God, I'm so bored, Daddy. I want to watch a show. He was drunk. I didn't realize he was drunk at the time because I didn't know. And I literally remember he was sitting there, and me and my brother was there. He was sitting there eating his steak because he loves his steaks. And he literally took the table and flipped it. And like I did like, and he was just like, shut the F up. I told you to lay your effing ass down, like going off on me. And I'm like literally like 6 years old. So imagine a baby just sitting there thinking that's her hero, and just, cause I'm just like, and I just bawled. And he was telling my brother, don't say an effing word to her and everything. And he said sorry by getting me candy. And from that day, we just always had like a because I still have that vision in my head. I was like 6 years old, or anything like when it comes to that. And then just as we grew as I grew older and he got older, we had like that was the only dad I knew, because I didn't have a real relationship with the person that raised me, my uncle. So it was just like, I just thought, and it was always honor thy mother and thy father, always. So that's still your dad at the end of the day, regardless of what he did. That's still your father. You better honor him. Oh, blah, blah, blah. And it wasn't until as I grew older, I saw how he treated you guys, the stories that I heard, me seeing things, him being abusive, even to me, putting his hands on me, even as an adult, and all of that messy stuff. So I didn't really have a real father-daughter relationship with anybody. I never had a mother-daughter relationship with anybody. Like, you have that, I don't know what that is. And gladly, all of our mothers took me in as their child. So I have a lot of mothers. But it's just, it's weird because I don't know what a healthy relationship with a parent is. But it just makes me, in a way, because I learned that I was always, all of my relationships was always based off of me going to somebody that was emotionally unavailable, mentally unavailable. Like, those are what I was comfortable in because that's all I knew. I just thought that was love, regardless, until later on in life when I went through my journey of therapy and everything, when I was realizing, no, I was choosing the wrong ones. I thought that was love, but that really wasn't love. I was in abusive relationships, mentally and physically before. So it was just a lot. Yeah, it's a lot to unpack.
It is a lot to unpack.
Yeah.
So you feel that in your relationships you were emotionally, you were getting with people that were emotionally unavailable. Mm-hmm. And maybe self-sabotage.
Self-sabotage. A lot of self-sabotage. Like, when I thought somebody was like a good person, like a real dope person, when they loved me, I always pushed it away because I didn't know how to handle it. I always said I started growing up on survival at 3 years old. I always had to take care of myself, even though I was living in a household, but that household was abusive. So it was just like, I was literally trying to survive since 3 years old. I always made my own money. I always made my own job. I was like Cinderella in the house because I was I was not their kids. I was somebody else's child. Yeah. So it was just a lot.
It's a lot. Yeah, I can tell.
It's a lot to unpack.
It's a lot to
It's a lot of layers. But yeah, it's a lot. Like, I'm thinking about, like,
it's a lot, but
it's a lot.
But the thing with that is you're not alone.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Your story isn't unique to you. Mm-hmm. And that's unfortunate.
Right.
But your story is, there are so many people that you can sit with that can share that your story with
that has some
similarities. So
backgrounds.
And it's unfortunate that it's just so unfortunate. Like, I just feel like if you're not ready to do all this stuff, stop making kids. Like, because at the end of the day, our minds and everything are really messed up because of these situations. And I promised myself, I said, I always said, I always wanted a daughter. I want a daughter so badly because I want to give that child the relationship that I never had. Like, I always said, I want a daughter so I could finally have that mother-daughter relationship. I could finally know how that feels to just have somebody love you the way I thought a mother and father should love their child.
Well, if you happen to identify with one of the stories that was just told, definitely let us know. If you have daddy issues, let us know in the comments. Make sure to subscribe, and don't forget to click that notifications button so that you can be notified as soon as a video drops. So, Shauna, I mean, we have similar stories, so that's
Well,
why.
we lived in the same house.
Yeah, yeah.
So Kaya and I share the same mom and father. So for me, I'm 2 years older than Kaya. So he was there up until I was about 2-ish. And then I didn't see him again till a day. It was a day I saw him when I was 10. And then I didn't see him again till I was 22. So he wasn't there at all. I could say he was not there. I always say God knew that my father would not be there, so he made sure my mom was like 3 steps under Jesus. Like she's like almost
He's amazing.
Got two.
perfect, you know, like she's loved by everybody, you know.
That's my mom.
So, and she made sure that we had that village. So my grandparents and aunts and uncles, it was her school, church. So I didn't miss it, or I should say I didn't know I missed it until I was older. Because he wasn't there, but I still had my grandfather, so I just like made him cards on Father's Day, you know. So it wasn't a thing until I was older. Yes.
So can I just ask for the timeline? So when Mama was pregnant, that's when he was out.
No.
No, I was a baby.
Okay.
He was like,
I was an arm baby.
She was in her arms.
Okay.
When he left, or I should say when
she was nice, kindly asked to leave.
She
in so many words.
She put him out.
Get your shit.
Because he acted bad.
I'm trying to make it sound good.
I'm trying to
When he was politely requested to vacate the premises.
She had a wait until exhale moment.
He was acting a fool and said, get your and get out.
Get your shit
and get out.
And get out.
So how do you feel that the relationship or the lack thereof affected your relationships with dudes?
Okay, so I didn't know that I like had what they would call as a daddy issue until my boyfriend at the time, who would become my husband, we had our first fight, and he was just like, you expect me to be your father? Like, I was just like, I got so mad. I was just like, how dare you? I don't have daddy issues. Like, I went off. But after I calmed down, obviously, I thought about it and said, maybe there is something to it. So I decided to start a friendship with my father. At this time, I'm in my 30s.
Okay.
So I said, I am going to have a friendship with my father, because at this time I'm grown. I'm like, I don't need no daddy now. So I did see that when I started to become friends with my father, I started to expect less from my man of like certain things. I had never heard my father say I was pretty or smart or good, or so the first time I was just like, you know, it was a whole thing because it was something I had never heard. So because I felt like I was getting validated by my father, I didn't need to be validated by my man. So for me, it was that I was just like, I need to become friends with my father so I can get the father things, so I don't look for them from men.
While Shauna was talking, something just popped in my head, and I never even realized this until now, because I guess we're in this realm. Growing up in elementary school, because of the neighborhood I was in, say I had 10 girlfriends, I might have had one friend that had both her parents in the house. So having been in a single parent home was normal for me because everybody else was in single parent homes. And we didn't, you know, if all my friends had both their parents in the house, I think I would have been like, damn, what's up with my dad? But I didn't look at it as bad per se, you know, because we always living like that at that time. That was just for my area. Everybody else had their own stories, but my friends in elementary school, a lot of my girlfriends and even the boys, I probably in my whole classroom, it might have been like maybe 2 or 3 that had their parents in the home. The rest of us, we came from single parent houses.
See, and for me, it was different because even on the street we grew up on, it was 2-parent home.
Well, aren't you lucky, Joe?
You know?
No,
she's the unicorn of the group.
Because because my husband lived on the next street over.
Yeah, but that wasn't the same street. That wasn't the same street.
But I always say the kids that we went to school with, most of us came from 2-parent homes. Which grew up in my neighborhood. So don't look at me like I'm crazy.
No, we wasn't by you. We wasn't by you. We was further. We was further.
Like same train stop. It was the same train stop.
We was further east. But Shauna, I was trying to pass you the ball, but you didn't catch and dunk it. So I was trying to say when you were 2, and he left, and our mother was getting into a scuffle.
I was there.
I was yet a baby. My mama had to put me down on the couch because he was acting a fool. And then Shauna was present in this altercation, and she was trying to tell Leonardo DiCaprio, Cleophas Jones, Cleophas Jones, to get off of her mother.
Yes,
and she could not get the words out.
Yes.
And it wasn't until, and I didn't find this out until probably last year.
It was
2 years ago.
2 years
that
ago.
She went under hypnosis to find out what was the trigger of her stuttering.
Yes.
And that's when she found out that it was that particular incident. How crazy is that?
Yes.
Wow. So you said it under hypnosis?
Yes.
Wow.
Do you know what you said?
So Cleophas.
No, it was like I relived the.
I need to go under hypnosis.
Right. I was like,
Anybody
Like
got
I
some
know
good
that was
news?
the story,
You
but
go
I
to
didn't know
hypnosis?
like
1 + 1 = 2. So if Cleophas and your mama didn't have this scuffle,
I probably wouldn't stutter.
It's childhood trauma.
Yeah.
It's childhood trauma.
Mm-hmm.
It's childhood trauma. And even though I was too little, I did not remember him. I think he was at Papa's funeral, right?
Yeah. But you asked me
I asked you who was that,
who
and
was
you
that.
said that's your father, silly.
Right.
that's
I
what
remember
Shauna would say.
Yeah, I remember Papa
it makes
probably
me
had.
happy.
Yeah, that's your father, silly. But he had dogs. Midnight, and what's the dog's
Otto.
name? Midnight and Otto. They were Dobermans, and we used to be scared of those dogs.
Yeah,
And
well,
the crazy thing about it
we're
is
like
Papa
6
lived
and
around the corner
4.
from us.
Like we're like
he,
6
he
and
lived right
4.
around the corner from us, so we
You know
actually
that.
had a relationship with
With your
him, even though we
grandfather.
didn't have a relationship with his son, our
Mhm.
father. And I was scared of dogs. We were both scared of dogs. But after he died, for whatever reason, the dogs and me and Shauna we were like one. I don't know whatever happened to the dogs, and I don't know what
I
happened
think
to his apartment when
they
he left. When he
they put him
they put
down.
him. Oh, yeah. I honestly, and I'm probably going to divulge information that I've probably never said out loud in my entire life, but I never thought that I was pretty, ever. I hated the way that I looked growing up. I hated my face, I hated my nose, I hated my teeth, I hated everything about the way that I looked. And because of the fact that mommy had us dancing from 3, there was
Mhm.
always um, the same girl that was in my dance age range. She was light skinned and long hair, and
Mhm.
everybody used to always, fawn over her. And I always thought that I was ugly. I didn't want to be on stage, but I love stage. Anytime we would have a performance, I thought I did good, but nobody really said anything to me because it was just like everybody else was, oh, she's so cute, she's so this. And I never really thought that I was pretty. And I always used to wonder, why is it that nobody wants me? You know what I'm saying? And then when I got in the church situation, there was a little bit of resentment towards mommy with the whole church situation because I felt like that was our entire life, and that was her entire life. Like we had nothing outside of that. Going to grandma's house and dealing with grandpa. I love my papa, but papa was a alcoholic, and he was mean at times. He was a original rude boy, Don Dada,
Mhm.
Jamaican.
Isn't it crazy how
rude boy.
alcohol plays a theme in our
Yeah.
lives?
Mhm.
And when
Sorry.
he would get drunk, or he would discipline us, and he had lost I don't know how many fingers due to frostbite, but them hands still could give you a good whack. A few of them, digits was gone. But when he was ready to hit,
He could do the pip sweat.
yes. Now I always used to wonder, why did my granddad speak so differently? And I did not realize until adulthood that my grandmother told him, don't you use that jumba talk in here. So my grandmother really didn't allow my grandfather to be his authentic um, Mandeville, Kingston, Jamaican self. You know what I'm saying? So his culture, even though he would cook, if he didn't, that brother could cook. He didn't care if he was ordering out, if he was going to restaurants, he would not eat in nobody's restaurant. He gonna come home and he gonna make his.
He was gonna make his food.
But and then he had an issue with his childhood and his family in Jamaica. So that part of us was kind of missing. And I just felt like I was a wandering soul with no foundation, right? And I got with my boyfriend when I was 13 years old. And granted, it was like a teenage love. Don't hurt me again, you know. But I flocked to my boyfriend the way that I did because it felt like a safe place and I had somebody to cover me. Because before then, it was just like a free for all. And niggas was just, I didn't think nobody wanted me. But when I was in grade school, everybody wanted to touch my booty because that's all I had was a booty. I didn't have nothing else. I didn't have no breasts. I just had booty. It was really, really scary. Me being as skinny as I was, and I did not feel pretty at all. I would take weight gain drinks, weight gain shakes, weight gain pills. I would try everything to gain weight when I was in high school, and then even after high school. I couldn't put on a pound for nothing. Had I known, yeah, what I
You know then what you know now.
what I know now.
You
That
appreciate
it
it.
was coming. That it was coming years later.
Later on.
That the
That's
weight
why
was
y'all
gonna
be telling
come
me
on.
that.
That's why we tell
Listen,
you that,
that'd be
girl.
like, girl, go ahead, keep the party going, be glad, because I tell everybody that my nickname is high school was Skella because I literally did look like a skeleton
She was
with just
thin.
skin over it.
She was
Like I was
really
very
thin.
modeling. Modeling is what they call it.
She was
very
really
skinny.
thin.
Damn.
But when me and my boyfriend that I was with since I was 13, his father, that was my dad. That became my dad. And then my high school music teacher was a dad. Like I had male role models that I would flock to, and I would like, I didn't want to let no, but I knew I wasn't their kid. And I always would be like, well, why did he want me? What is it because I look like this? Or is it, I really had a very bad self-image when I was younger. It was very bad.
Oh wow.
And then when me and my friend, which was then husband, when the minute that I found out that he wasn't as faithful as I thought he was, I probably had a breakdown, right? Because of Cleophas, Lee Ray Jackson
Jones.
Lee Ray Jackson Jones. If anybody were to walk away from me or to dismiss me or even hang up the phone on me, I would literally have a breakdown. Like I would
That's me.
mentally shut down. Like I can't
That was
take
me.
it. Those
I
are
can't
triggers
take
for me.
rejection.
I have not.
Yes.
Sometimes I feel like, oh, it's good. I'm good. But it's still, I mean, I'm getting better. I've gotten much better because back then I used to try to burn down half of Queens and Staten Island. Like I was just ready to burn everything down. But with my husband now, because obviously I had to get a divorce, and I was out here in these streets uncovered again. But I was out here in these streets uncovered
You really
again.
say it like that?
Yes, I was. But I met up with Cleophas. And I remember that's when I had the Toyota little car. And we had went to BBQs. We had went to BBQs in Brooklyn on Livingston, right? And apparently he couldn't eat because his insides was messed up. I just want to let you know that I got that car in 2002. Okay, it is 2022. Okay, so he couldn't eat back then, so he had just got him a drink that he could sip because he was able to sip his drink.
Was it liquor or was it juice?
No, it was liquor. So I took him home, and I think that's when he was living in what is over there?
Brooklyn.
In Brooklyn, in that area, in the buildings. And I took him home, and before he got out, I prayed with him. And I did one of them call on, I did one of them prayers. I prayed. He was like DJ Pooh and Friday after um after Debo said, "That's my bike, punk," and he punched him out. Remember how he ran to his car?
He dashed out of there, huh?
He ran to his house from my car after we prayed, and I said, "Amen." And I tried to keep, like Shauna, I tried to keep up with him and try to, check in with him and everything. But he is just unable to be even a friend.
Incapable of friendship.
Yeah. And this is at the age that I am now. So you know what? I accept it for what it is.
Right.
And this is the life that I chose. And my parents are my parents, but thank God for giving me other people in the midst that I could, really, because me and men, I just like I did look for father figures. You know what I'm saying? I did look for father figures. And so now I have to tell my husband now, you're not my father.
Did you realize, because Shauna said she didn't miss anything, you realized that you were missing something?
Yeah.
Although we've grown up in the same home, our experiences are shared experiences. However, how we internalize them and how we experience those situations are not the same.
True.
And sometimes, we don't grant our siblings grace because we grew up in the same damn house. Like, how you don't get it the way I got it? Because we're still humans, and the way you felt the absence, where Shauna,
I didn't feel it.
She didn't really feel the absence, but she later on in life identified that there was an absence.
Yeah,
I was like, wait, I got issues. I didn't realize I got that.
No, I acknowledge that absence. I acknowledge that absence throughout. And even though I love my siblings, like every time I saw my siblings, it would be a reminder that something is missing. I was glad that I had my siblings because the fact, like I used to brag. I call my brothers. I would call my brothers.
Well, your family. I don't want to say because there are other families out there. It's just people are always amazed to see that you all have a relationship with one another the way you do, not all having the same mother. The common denominator is your dad. However, all of you do have a relationship with one another outside of him.
Because and need him to even form the relationship.
You all share the same experience that he wasn't present.
In some way, in some form.
Each of you have your own story of how your relationship with him was.
Right.
Like, I can tell you all that, not to speak for him, but from what I know from him, he had a relationship with his father. It wasn't the best of relationships.
But he had a relationship.
He can tell you things that he's experienced with your dad. But he will also tell you that there's a reason why he didn't have multiple children. And there's a reason why he's always been and still is there the minute his son calls him.
Right.
Because he does understand that experience of that and knows that feeling of that absence. He remembers that, sitting by the piano and falling asleep, waiting for his dad to come and pick him up. And he knew that he never wanted to do that to children. So, I mean, it's just
when I got divorced, I was adamant, even though I didn't have the tools to communicate that properly, But when we got a divorce, you don't have a choice but to be in your son's life. Like, yes, you're going to take him every weekend. Like, they ain't, no, we gonna keep that. We gonna keep that party going. Me and you may not have been able to continue a relationship, but there's no reason why you and your son can't.
Right.
And I'm proud of you for that, because a lot of women, you know, have this thing, well, if we're not together, you can't see your son or whatever.
Stay tuned for part 2 of Between Sisters.
Sure
If
can.
you know that if that relationship is a toxic relationship, you remove yourself from the toxicity.
And that doesn't mean that you hate them,
Has nothing to
that
do with
you
it. Has
wish them
nothing-
ill.
Nope.
It just means that you are protecting your
You-
own sanity.
You're protecting you.